back to Genesys Weekly. My name's Hazel, and each week I host a Genesys tournament, and I bring you the best replays and deck lists from it. This week we played with the new Pointlist update, so you'll get a first look at what gameplay and deck lists for the new format look like. Plus, it was our biggest turnout yet with 35 players, which was very exciting. If you want to play in a Genesys Weekly, join Genesys Discord, links in the description. They're free to enter, by the way. And don't forget to subscribe for more Genesys content. Our first matchup today features two decks known for their grind game, one of which recently got a buff on the points list and one of which recently got a nerf. This is Fire King, and they're up against Clown Crew. Fire King has won the die roll, and they start with a small world. They'll start with a Dogran, they'll go through a Barong, and they'll get a Mulcharmy Perulia? Ooh, something went wrong. They just pass. That's not the great start, but we do have the Emissary from the House of Wax, so we can survive. Here's a Manju of the 10,000 hands. They'll search for a Clown Crew Flare. That'll be met by Perulia a little bit late. Make sure your simulators are on manual chain link so you don't miss out on Perulia activations before they normal summon. Here's a Malabarisme, though. We're going to summon a Bianca Viso and a Fiends from the deck. This is signaling that they're probably looking to do a Nerva line. That's why they wanted to summon an Illusion monster. Next up, they'll use the Rehearsal to go ahead and tribute a monster off and get a double search. They'll get a Bianca Viso and the Operatics. Operatics is up next. And then they're going to go ahead and rank up into the Xyz Armor Fortress, and then use the Operatics to summon another Fiends, and then rank that up into the Dark Seraphim Irisville. And then we'll go ahead and use Rehearsal in the graveyard, tribute up Bianca Viso to Ritual Summon a Flare, and go for lethal, but we are getting waxed, except for a Forbidden Chalice. But the Emissary from the House of Wax is a monster that was originally fire, which means when it's destroyed by battle or card effect, here is our Garunix to save the day. It comes down and destroys another monster from our deck. We'll go ahead and destroy a Ponix so we can get it back on the next standby phase. And Garunix being 2,950 will actually completely wall off that entire attack. Main phase 2 will tribute 3 monsters of different types for a Nerva, the Power Patron of Creation, in defense position. And then we'll go ahead and use the effect of the Tributed Flare to set the Garunix. Not that that's super high impact, but we'll go to the end phase. We'll get our Operatics draw 2. We get a Malabarisme, which will set and pass it over. Ponix is drawn for turn, and Ponix is returned from the graveyard for the standby phase for turn. We'll go ahead and normal the Ponix and flip summon the Garunix. We'll get a Fire King Sanctuary off the Ponix. We'll go ahead and let that rip and get a Fire King Island straight from the deck. And then we'll go ahead and destroy these extra Ponix in our hand and search for a copy of the Fire King High Avatar Kirin, which triggers this additional copy of Garunix in our hand. It'll come down and it's going to destroy a card in our deck. We'll destroy our own Avatar Kirin. And of course, when Avatar Kirin is destroyed, it'll summon back another monster and destroy a card on the field non-targeting. Nerva was selected, but Nerva has an interesting line of text that says it cannot be destroyed by card effects while there is a field spell on the field. So our own field spell protecting their monster. Oopsie. Go ahead and rank up into the Garunix Eternity here, destroying all monsters on the field, except, of course, Nerva can't be destroyed, and the Dark Seraphim can detach one material instead of being destroyed. Go to battle phase and attack, do some damage. Final Bringer of the End Times will threaten to destroy our monster, and the set trap card here. They'll be forced to chain the Soiree here, and they'll go ahead and use the effect immediately. They'll choose the mode to search for a monster. They'll choose a Flare, and then our own Garunix is destroyed, which means its effect to float will activate. We'll get back 2 names from the graveyard, choose a Garunix and itself back from the graveyard, and we'll choose defense position because neither of them can even hit over the Nerva anyway. Malabarisme, though, on the Clown Crew side, we'll summon 2 names before the turn ends, and then we'll pass it over. They draw an Eva for turn as our Ponix returns from the standby phase as well. They'll use a Flare, searching for a new face, and then discard the new face to set it up immediately because it resets itself from the graveyard. Malabarisme in the graveyard can bounce the Sanctuary to our hand, and what that means is now we cannot quick rank up into another copy of the Garunix Eternity during their turn, which is a bit unfortunate. They'll go ahead and trigger the Meteor to get back their Bianca Viso. Then they'll use an Operatics summoning a Fiends. At this point, we use our own Kirin and we'll destroy the Garunix Eternity. That'll trigger a Garunix in our graveyard to summon itself back. And then we can go ahead and destroy another card in our deck. We'll choose another Avatar Kirin. And that'll be met by our opponent with their Soiree operations to go ahead and tribute summon the Bianca Viso. And then we'll summon a monster and then destroy non-targeting. We can actually choose to destroy that Bianca Viso before it has the opportunity to activate its trigger effect. Kind of unfortunate for them. Look up Deneb versus MST if you're curious. And then We'll go ahead and resolve the rest of the chain links, though. They did successfully tribute summon a monster, so the new phase will go ahead and destroy our Fire King Island, unfortunately, as they get a copy of the Crown Crew finale and a rehearsal from the deck. And then, of course, when the Fire King Island is destroyed, we lose everything. But not all is lost. We have a Ponix in our hand. We'll summon it, and it will defend us and search us a copy of the Circle of the Fire Kings. They'll attack over the Ponix with Nerva, but from the Embers we shall rebuild. End phase, they draw a bazillion cards. We draw a Skyburn. We get back the Ponix. Their new face is going to shuffle back 3 cards from their banishment and draw them a card. It's another Eva. Uh-oh. We normal summon a Ponix and we'll chain our Skyburn to destroy our own Ponix and snipe that Apparatus before it can do anything heinous on this turn. We'll get another copy of Skyburn from the Ponix effect, and more importantly, we'll trigger our Garunix, summoning itself back to the field, and we'll destroy a card in the deck. Let's try this time the Ulcanix, which when it's destroyed will summon a level 8 monster from our deck. Here is the High Avatar Garunix, and here is the Garunix Eternity, and Nerva is not protected anymore because we no longer have a field spell. So we're going to blow up all the monsters and it will connect. We'll attack for 3,000 and Circle of the Fire Kings. We'll destroy our own monster and bring it back. And then that's going to present lethal because we'll get back 2 more monsters with the Garunix Eternity. And Clown Crew simply says, let's go to game 2. Here's game 2. And once again, the Emissary from the House of Wax is glued to our hand. Clown Crew begins this time with the Clown Crew Flare. They'll go ahead and get a Rehearsal and discard Eudora the Sword Oracle. Ooh, that's scary. Rehearsal is going to go ahead and tribute a Flare for a double search. They'll get a Malabarisme and the Bianca Viso. Here's the Malabarisme, summoning 2 names, of course, the Fiends and the Diabolo. They'll tribute summon the Bianca Viso, and they will trigger all of the effects. They'll get a Pot of Greed from the Bianca Viso, and from the 2 tributed monsters, the Trap from the deck, which is a Soiree, and a Spell, which is the Apparatus. Go ahead and draw 2, and that's the Unbreakable Exceeds Barrier. Yikes, that is a terrifying card to see. Go ahead and use the Apparatus to get a Meteor from the deck, and then they'll use the Rehearsal in the graveyard, ritual summoning their Flare by tributing their Meteor, and that'll give them a card back from the graveyard. That'll be another copy of Flare. They'll go ahead and set an Unbreakable Exceeds Barrier, and this is where Fire King has had enough. Kieran's going to destroy Megalo in their own hand. Quick effect. And we'll go ahead and trigger all of our effects. Megalo Chainlink 1 and Ponix Chainlink 2, chain blocking the Megalo. Our opponent decides to use the Herald of Orange Light anyway to destroy the Ponix in our hand, but the Megalo in the graveyard will trigger, sending the Jurak Astero to the graveyard and threatening now to blow up the entire field with the Jurak Meteor. Next thing that happens, though, we go to the end phase, and the Apparatus will activate to get 4 draws from the deck. This is where the Meteor is going to come down, though. But unfortunately for the Fire King player, they have drawn Herald of Orange Light and a Keldeo the Sacred Protector. Not only another Herald, but a Fairy to pitch for it. So when the Jurak Meteor activates, it will be negated and destroyed by the Herald of Orange Light. Oof. That has to hurt. Molcharmi Purlia for turn is also not what you'd like to see, as the operation is going to go ahead and summon 2 more monsters from the extra deck, only building up their formidable defense. We're going to go ahead and try to get our Ponix back, but the Keldeo the Sacred Protector is going to shuffle it back into the deck instead, and we are not looking good. Bianca Viso effect activates, and they're going to go ahead and use it to tribute summon the Wicked Avatar from their hand to just completely stun us out of spells and traps as well. And we have no response. We can't negate that effect. We're going to be locked out. It's chain blocked anyway if we had something like a Herald of Orange Light of our own. They get a new face from the deck as well. They get back a Bianca Viso, and now we're locked for 2 turns out of spells and traps as Bianca Viso comes down. And they're going to continue to net advantage while we're sitting here helplessly on our own turn. They set our monster. We pass it over. They draw a billion cards due to the Apparatus and then their own draw for turn. New face draws them another card. Malabarisme bounces our monster, and it's not looking good. Apparatus gets a Fiends from the deck. They'll go ahead and use a Flare to search and discard Finale to get its graveyard effect live. They'll go ahead and use a Malabarisme, summoning a Meteor and a Fiends, a Diabolo, and then tribute both for the Bianca Viso. And here they're continuing to just generate advantage while we have seemingly nothing. There's a Soiree from the deck. There is a Malabarisme back from the graveyard, and 2 draws. We'll try to use Kieran, but it's going to be negated by the Unbreakable Exceeds Barrier. But because they don't have any materials, they can't even destroy anything. Not that we have anything on the field to destroy. They'll attack directly, but we do have the Wax, but they have another Chalice for the Wax, so they can destroy it. Unfortunate for them, we do survive. And then they'll go ahead and just continue to draw cards, and they'll have to discard for hand limit, which is terrifying to see. We draw a Fire King Island for turn, but of course we can't activate it because we're under the effect of the Wicked Avatar. Which is pretty tough. And then, of course, they're going to go ahead and draw 1 more card from their new face. It's basically over. We're going to set pass, and this is just window dressing. We're about to surrender in about 1 second because there is nothing that we can do to stop this. Here's game 3 for all the marbles. We'll start with a Ponix. It's going to be met immediately with Orange Light Pitch Eva, which is unfortunate. They'll go ahead and get a Herald of Orange Light. We'll follow up with Sanctuary. We did already have the Sanctuary at least. Get an island from the deck, and then we'll use the effect destroying a Barong that we had to search for a Garunix. This is actually a pretty good opening, all things considered, but we didn't trigger the Garunix. I think this is a simulator moment. I think they meant to click yes, but they clicked no. So we'll just set the Skyburn instead and pass it over instead. Barong in the standby phase is going to get us a search. We'll get the Kirin, and then the Ponix, of course, will return to hand as well. We at least have a pretty good hand, all things considered, even though that was probably a misplay. Senju's going to go ahead and come down and get a copy of the Clown Crew Flare, and then Flare is going to go ahead and activate and give them a copy of Rehearsal, discarding a Forbidden Chalice. Next up is Rehearsal, tributing the Flare for a double search. We've seen this before. Malabrisme is now in rotation, and here is a Fiends and a Diabolo from it. We'll meet that with Kirin destroying our Ponix, but then the Garunix in our hand is going to be met by the Herald of Orange Light. Oof, negated and destroyed. That hurts. Google It was the discard, and they'll get another copy of Forbidden Chalice, so they didn't need that first one. Overlay him from the Ixie's Armor Fortress, and then tribute 3 for Nerva in defense position. We're very lucky right now that they can't put that in attack position, because that would hurt. Fire King Skyburn comes down, and it's going to destroy our Kirin, and, well, not destroy their Nerva, because we do have a field spell, but that is going to trigger some effects. Kirin in the graveyard, when it's destroyed, we'll summon back another Fire King and then destroy a card. So we can go ahead and use that effect to snipe that Soiree before they have a chance to activate it. And then Garunix on summon will activate, but that'll be met by the Chalice, unfortunately. Ouch! At least they didn't Chalice our Wax this time. Here's an Operatics. They'll go ahead and try to draw 4 cards and summon a guy, but we have the Ghost Ogre, so at least we could stop that. And now it's a pretty simplified game state. 3 cards versus 2. We draw a Garunix for turn, and that is actually a pretty good draw. Get our Ponix back as well. The Fire King Island will be activated, destroying that Ponix, searching for a copy of Ulcanix, and then that'll trigger the Garunix that we have in our hand, summoning itself and destroying another card in our deck. That'll be a Kirin, so we'll get back a card, and we can destroy something, well, or not destroy something in this case. And then we resolve the Ponix to get a Circle of the Fire Kings, overlay for Dingirsu, and you can't be destroyed, but you can be sent to the graveyard. Our opponent's going to try to dodge that with a Soiree to tribute summon this Bianca Vista, but unfortunately for them, Dingirsu does not target, and we'll just send the Bianca Vista instead. We'll normal summon the Ulcanix, we'll destroy the Ponix, and get a copy of Kirin in our hand. Go to the battle phase, attack, and then we'll go ahead and use Circle of the Fire Kings, destroying our Ulcanix for a Kirin. That'll trigger the effect of Ulcanix. Unfortunately, Ulcanix summons in defense position, though. Otherwise, they would be dead now. They only have 2,200 life points. Their draw for turn is the Herald of Green Light, which is not good for them. They could try to bounce our Dingirsu, but they have nothing to do, and they will surrender. Here is the Clown Crew list, and compared to before, it has maximized the amount of fairies in the deck list. We have 2 Bianca Viso, 3 Flare, 3 Rehearsal, and 2 Malabrismes is pretty standard. We have the Operatics, and then we have 1 of each trap. The Finale is a controversial inclusion. We also have maximum copies of Senju and Manju and Orange Light and Green Light and Google It and Eva alongside the Herald of Purple Light, 2 copies of Mudora, and a Keldo all in the main deck. That is a lot of fairies. What is that? 16, 22 fairies in the main deck. That is a scary sight to behold. Alongside 3 Forbidden Chalice and 1 Wicked Avatar. This is a scary high roll deck. And if you like drawing cards, you'll probably like playing this. In the extra deck, we have 3 copies of all the ones that matters. The Meteor, the Fiends, and the Diabolo. 1 copy of Nerva. And then a bunch of just stuff that you can overlay. Ixie's Armor Fortress, double the Ursaville. And I don't know if the Valen actually comes up or if it's just here because it's fun. And then in the side deck here, we had 2 more of the Wicked Avatar. If you like Floodgates, here you go. Triple Vados, it's pretty good right now. Triple of the Winged Dragon and Raw Sphere mode. Of course, it's very funny in the Clown Crew deck because you can use the Soiree during your opponent's turn to tribute their monsters for a sphere mode, which is pretty funny, actually. Triple Unbreakable Xyz Barrier, which is pretty scary because you can just summon all these Xyz monsters for free. Triple Lancea, and 1 Twin Twisters for consistency. Here's the Fire King deck list. I always love seeing Fire King do well because it's one of the first decks I ever built, actually, as an adult. It features 3 copies of Ponix and Kirin and Garunix for consistency alongside 3 copies of the Megalo as well. We have 1 copy of the Ulcanix, 2 copies of Arvada, 2 copies of Barong, and then 1 copy of the Garunix that Ulcanix summons from the Destruction effect, alongside 2 copies of Small World to bridge between all of our fun fire options. We have 2 copies of Island, 2 copies of Sanctuary, 2 copies of Skyburn, and 1 copy of Circle as well for our spell lineup, and 3 copies of Final Bringer of the End Times, which is basically Skyburn 2.0. For non-engine, we have 3 copies of Perulia, 2 copies of Ghost Ogre, and a DD Crow, alongside 3 copies of Dogoran, which is fun because it's a fire attribute, and 1 copy of the Emissary of the House of Wax, possibly the best card in the deck. In the extra deck, we have all 3 copies of Garunix Eternity. I'm not sure if the third one comes up or if this is just simplified deck building since there's 3 of all of them. We also have Dingirsu, which is a very good card. Coach Giant, whatever his name is. He's very good if you like drawing cards. And then 3 of each of the Jurat guys. You could probably cut down to 2 of each of these and then fit in some more flexible options if you're interested in playing the deck yourself. And then in the side deck here, we have 3 copies of Lancea, 3 copies of MST, 3 copies of My Body's a Shield, triple debunk, and triple non-fusion area. Our next matchup is Chimera featuring Chaos Ritual, and they're up against Rose Dragons. Hope you enjoy. Rose Dragons will begin with the Rocks Rose Dragon, normal summon, searching for a copy of the Black Rose Garden. Black Rose Garden's up next, activate and search for a copy of the White Rose Dragon, which can special summon itself. And then that'll be met by a Chaos Hunter, pitching a copy of the Skull Archfiend of Chaos to the graveyard to summon itself, turning off all banishes, and then also the Skull Archfiend is going to trigger, setting up the Chaos Ritual. This is a scary opening. They'll go ahead and get a copy of the Blackluster Soldier with it, and then we'll go ahead and synchro up into the Perialis Empress of Blooms. That'll trigger the White Rose Dragon in the graveyard, sending a Vengeful Witch to the graveyard. That'll trigger that effect, and we'll discard a card to summon a plant from the deck. We'll choose the Twilight Rose Black Knight, which will trigger on summon, and that'll summon back the Vengeful Witch negated, and then we can go ahead and modulate the level, except Ghost Ogre is going to come down and ruin our synchro plans. That's a bit unfortunate. We now have a level 3 Vengeful Witch, but we do have a Supe Duskwalker in hand, which is a great extender. Summon it, it's a level 5. It summons a level 1 tuner from the deck and 5+1. Can then go ahead and make the Rage Rose Witch, which on summon is going to do a double Foolish Burial, 1 from the deck, 1 from the other deck. We'll go ahead and send the Mardell and a Garden Rose Maiden. Garden Rose Maiden can't be used this turn, but maybe next turn. We'll use the Perialis, finally summon a level 5 or higher plant from our graveyard. That's going to be Mardell, which on summon gives us a search of any plant we'd like. We'll go ahead and get the Princess Draconea of the Thirsting Tree, and then we'll go ahead and synchro up into Chaos Angel. That was a 6+4 with a light and a dark, so Chaos Angel is here with all of its effects live, locked and loaded. We'll go ahead and use Draconea next, sending a Spore Retrain from the deck to the graveyard to summon itself, and then we'll go ahead and synchro up a 6+1 equals 7 for the Circle of Fairies. Circle of Fairies notably gives you a bonus normal summon of a plant type monster this turn, so we'll use it on this Cactus Bouncer, which reads, while another plant's on the field, neither player can special summon monsters. Good luck, Chimera. Hope you didn't want to special summon. Pass it over, and let's see what they do. They have a Godos, which is not that great. They attack with the Chaos Hunter, but the Chaos Angel says all of our monsters cannot be destroyed by battle because it was made with a dark material. That's unfortunate. We'll go ahead and go to main phase 2. Light and Darkness Ritual gets back the Skull Archfiend of Chaos. Normal summon Mirror Swords Knight, set pass, including set an artifact Lancea in the back row, which is something that I honestly forget you can actually do because it is an artifact card. We draw for turn, and it's a Basil Rose Shoot. We go to attack position. We attack. Well, first we'll do some damage. Then we'll attack. But there's an issue. Mirror Swords Knight's an illusion monster, and it says if this card battles a monster, neither can be destroyed. But you still take the damage, I suppose, but we'll have to pass over. Our opponent just goes to defense mode and passes, and I think you can see where this match is going. We'll draw a Perulia for turn and pass. Our opponent draws a Mirror Swords Knight and sets it for turn. We draw, and we'll go to battle phase, and we'll try to hit over their new monster. It's, of course, another Mirror Swords Knight, so we can't destroy it. We pass. They draw a Chaos Mystic box, which is annoying if we ever try to break their board. We draw a Dark Ruler no more for turn, which is great. We can finally out the Mirror Swords Knights. We can attack. We can deal a little bit of damage if only that would actually do anything. And then we'll attack. That's it for that, though. Hopefully, they don't set up too much of a defense. They'll activate Forbidden Chalice, negating the Cactus Bounce, so they're free for one turn to do what they would like. They'll activate the Light and Darkness Ritual, and Ritual Summon the Blackluster Soldier right from their hand, and they'll use this effect trying to banish the Chaos Angel to turn off the protection. But the problem is Chaos Angel was also made with a light material, so synchro monsters are unaffected by monster effects, so that's not going to do anything. They'll attack the Circle of Fairies, 800 damage, but you can't get the second attack and the bonus attack points unless you actually destroy a monster by battle, so that's just going to be 800 damage. Main phase 2, Ritual returns the Archfiend back from the graveyard to the hand and will pass. Cactus Bouncer is now unnegated, and they're locked again. Perhaps the Blackluster Soldier should have banished the Bouncer instead. We'll go ahead and draw a Black Rose Garden for turn. We'll go into the battle phase. We'll attack with the Chaos Angel into the Blackluster Soldier, but of course, the Blackluster Soldier cannot be destroyed by battle either. So we're back in the same situation that we were in before. Switch to defense mode and pass it over. They draw a Griffo for a turn, and they'll activate it and use it to set a card from the deck. That's their Mind Shuffle finally in rotation. They'll activate it and they'll start deck thinning. Maybe they're trying to draw into a specific out. Go ahead and search for the Dark Chaos and pitch in Skull Archfiend. No effect of the Archfiend in the graveyard. Black Luster Soldier to defense position, and we draw a Rocks Rose for turn. Activate Black Rose Guardian. Get back our White Rose from the banishment. We'll go to defense position and just pass it over. Mind Shuffle activates on our opponent's side. They'll get a Griffo, pitch the Skull Archfiend, and pass. We draw a Red Rose. We set it and pass for turn. They draw a Big Wing Berfomet and pass. It is now turn 17, and we can't play the game. We're drawing a Dark Ruler for no more for turn. They draw a Ghost Ogre for turn, and discard for hand limit. We draw Supe Duskwalker, and finally we say enough is enough. It's turn 19, and we're going to play the dang game. We tribute summon Supe Duskwalker by tributing our Cactus Bouncer, and now we have opened Pandora's box. We're going to go ahead and synchro up into the Snake Eyes Vengeance Dragon first thing. I'm going to use its effect alongside the Red Rose Dragon. We're going to try to put that Blacklist Soldier in the back row, and that'll be met by the Chaos Mystic Box. Blacklist Soldier instead is tucked in the hand, and because Chaos Mystic Box is a spell card, it can destroy the Chaos Angel. Down comes the Dark Chaos, and we'll go ahead and summon the White Rose Dragon from the hand from the effect of the Red Rose in the graveyard. That's going to trigger a whole bunch more trigger effects. Rage Rose will summon itself because a card was destroyed. Rocks Rose as well will return itself to the hand because the card was destroyed. And the Dark Chaos will go ahead and get back that Mystic Box from the graveyard to the hand. Next up, the Mind Shuffle is going to go ahead and get a search. They'll search for a Griffo, pitch the Griffo. We'll go to attack position, and then in the battle phase, we'll try to use Vengeance Dragon for its second effect, which is destroy a card in the back row and a monster. That's going to be met by the Mind Shuffle, and down comes the Black Luster Soldier. And our Black Rose Garden is destroyed. It's going to do a little bit of burn damage, but the Black Luster Soldier is going to banish our Vengeance Dragon in kind. We don't have a way to hit over that, so we're going to go to main phase 2. We're going to use the Princess Draconea in the graveyard. It's going to be my Mind Shuffle. They're going to swap back. Here comes our Rocks Rose from the hand. We could have summoned from the deck, but oh well. Here is a Vengeful Witch in our hand from the search effect, and that's going to trigger our opponent to summon their Heka Hands Godos, which can steal a monster from our graveyard. They'll steal our Chaos Angel, and it's not even negated, and Chaos Angel says when this card is special summoned, banish a card. So they're going to go ahead and banish our back row, which is unfortunate. We'll synchro up 3/4 into the Bramble Rose Dragon, and then we'll use its effect to tag out into the Black Rose Dragon, which explodes the board and destroys, honestly, a pathetic number of cards. Only like 3 cards got destroyed. We'll go ahead and use the Basil Rose Shoot, though. Summon back an Extender, and then go up into the Bestial Dispatter with a 7/3. Bestial Dispatter can get back a monster from the banishment, but that'll be met by Ghost Ogre. But our opponent has a banished monster, so we can go ahead and shuffle that back into the deck to negate the Ghost Ogre. We will get back our Princess Draconea, and then we'll do 7/1 equals 8 for a Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon. Okay. Garden Rose Maiden can banish itself finally, summoning back the Bramble Rose Dragon, and we'll set pass, ending on a negation of a monster, a destruction of a monster, and a Tax Dragon with a bluff of a Dark Ruler no more. Our opponent draws a Gazelle, the King of Mythical Claws, and they'll go ahead and use the Light and Darkness Ritual to get their cards back in hand. Skull Archfiend Chaos continues to put cards back into their deck, but the Crystal Wing and Synchro Dragon is going to negate it this turn. We will be destroyed by a Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit, however. Next up is going to be the Dark Chaos. It's going to try to banish this Bestial Dispatter face down. Dispatter can be chained, but we're just going to go ahead and use Mind Shuffle to get out of the way anyway. Not that we could destroy the Dark Chaos with such an effect. Black Luster Soldier comes down. Bestial Dispatter is banished face down. And Black Luster Soldier can go ahead and try to banish the Bramble Rose Dragon. Bramble Rose will go ahead and tag out instead, and we'll chain Mind Shuffle to tag out as well. Down comes a Black Rose Dragon, but it was summoned as Chainlink 2, which means it's actually going to miss timing and do nothing as the Black Chaos goes ahead and gets back a Forbidden Chalice from the graveyard. Griffo's up next. I think they thought that they had a card to set in the deck, but they don't, so they're going to have to use the additional mode of the next damage you take this turn is 0, which is funny. They'll go ahead and follow up with the Gazelle King of Mythical Claws that they drew for turn. Search for a copy of the Chimera Fusion. Chimera Fusion's up next, and they'll fuse Gazelle and the Berfomet into Berfomet Fusion. And this is where we pack it up, try to save time, and go to game 2. Turn 20, by the way. Here's game 2, and we've drawn the perplexing combination of Vanadium Reframing with Evenly Matched. Go ahead and start, though, with the Black Rose Garden. and use its effect to search for the Rocks Rose Dragon. Normal summon that and use its effect to search for a Vengeful Witch, which can summon itself from the hand. And then 3 + 4 = 7 for a Perialis. We'll use the Vengeful Witch in the graveyard, discarding our evenly matched summon the Twilight Black Rose Knight, which gets back the Vengeful Witch. And then we'll synchro up into the Circle of the Fairies. Go ahead and use Supe Duskwalker up next, summoning itself and the level 1 tuner Supe from the deck. And we'll go ahead and synchro up 5 + 1 = 6 for the Rage Rose Witch, sending the same 2 names to the graveyard that we did in game 1. Go ahead and summon back the Mardell with the Perialis, and this time Mardell will search for the Cactus Bouncer. Activate the Garden Rose Maiden, summoning back a Rocks Rose, synchro up into the Chaos Angel again. Normal summon Cactus Bouncer, set the reframing, and pass with a pretty similar board actually, despite the fact that there's no Chaos Hunter. Our opponent draws an Artifact Land Seiya for turn, and they activate Book of Eclipse, trying to break the board, but we have the reframing to negate it. Forbidden Chalice is up next. It'll negate the Bouncer, so they can at least play the game. They'll go ahead and use the Chimera Fusion in hand, fusing with a Bird Ferment and a Skull Archfiend of Chaos to make the Aerial Eater. That'll not only trigger the Archfiend in the graveyard, but they'll let them send the Griffo to the graveyard to set up their plays. They get a search of the Black Luster Soldier, then Light and Darkness Ritual can go ahead and return itself and the Griffo to hand. Griffo can now be used to get the Mind Shuffle right out of the deck, and it can be activated this turn. And they are simply playing the game. Activate Mind Shuffle, and they will not use an effect, but they'll just Ritual Summon the Black Luster Soldier with the Ritual spell by banishing the Griffo as the full material from the graveyard. And then they'll go ahead on summon, banish that Cactus Bouncer before anything has a chance to go wrong. Next up, Skull Archfiend of Chaos summons itself by shuffling back 3 cards, including one of our opponents, and it's going to go to battle phase. Their monsters can't be destroyed by battle, though, because of the Chaos Angel. Bit of a misplay there. Pass it over. Red Rose Dragon is drawn for turn. Mind Shuffle in the draw phase. Search for and discard Skull Archfiend of Chaos. And that's going to get us access to the Dark Chaos. Main phase happens. Normal summon Red Rose. And we'll just synchro right up into the Vengeance Dragon. Go ahead and use the effect to float into the Rocks Rose Dragon. And get a copy of the Black Rose Garden to our hand. Activate that. That'll be met by the Mind Shuffle. And we'll go into the Black Chaos here. And here is a White Rose Dragon from the search from the Black Rose Garden. Dark Chaos, go ahead and get back a copy of Forbidden Chalice from the graveyard. Go to attack mode and just start blasting. A little bit of extra burn damage as well. Attack, attack. Can't get over the Black Chaos with our board. We'll just pass it over. They'll activate Forbidden Chalice on the Chaos Angel. Nice out. And then the Dark Chaos can go ahead and banish it face down. Mind Shuffle's up next. But we'll chain Vengeance Dragon to put that Dark Chaos into the back row, and you can't use both effects of Mind Shuffle on the same chain, so that's just kind of trapped there. They're going to have to figure out another way to get a high-level monster onto the board. They'll use their Light and Darkness Ritual in the graveyard to put itself and the Skull Archfiend back into the hand. Then they'll use Griffo to set a card from the deck. They'll go ahead and set the Mystic Box. Next up, Skull Archfiend in the graveyard will summon itself, and that might just be the high-level monster they were looking for. They'll summon Gazelle, the King of Mythical Claws. That'll give them a copy of the Chimera Fusion. And then they'll go ahead and use their Ritual spell, banishing from the graveyard as material to summon the Black Luster Soldier. It's going to banish Snake Eyes Vengeance Dragon, and here is Chimera Fusion as well. Using out 2 of the Archfiends for the Mud Dragon, not Medora. Black Luster Soldier attacks twice, gets it's 4,500 attack points. They'll change the Mud Dragon to Divine Attribute. I'm sure that's very important, and they pass it over. We draw a Rocks Rose and normal summon it for turn, searching for a copy of the Basil Rose Shoot. Next up, the White Rose in our hand can summon itself, and we'll synchro 3 + 4 = 7 for the Bramble Rose. We'll use the effect in the graveyard of the White Rose to dump the Vengeful Witch. And then we'll go ahead and tag out the Bramble Rose for the Black Rose Dragon. Black Rose on summon will destroy a whole bunch of cards. They'll chain the Mind Shuffle to search because it's about to be destroyed. The Black Luster Soldier survives, and the Black Rose Garden in the graveyard activates, and notably because it was destroyed by the effect of Black Rose Dragon, it's going to deal bonus burn damage as well. We'll chain the Basil Rose Shoot to get back the Bramble Rose Dragon as our opponent takes 900 and then 2,400 burn damage from the Black Rose Garden. We pass it over to them. They draw these Swords of Concealing Light. They get back their Dark Chaos with the Ritual spell. And then they'll use the Skull Archfiend of Chaos to shuffle back 3 of their cards into the deck, summoning itself and taking 600 damage from the Bramble Rose tax effect. They will attack. They will get attack over our Bramble Rose. That triggers our Rocks Rose to float back. They attack over our other monsters as well. Black Luster Soldier now up to 5,400 attack points. And in main phase 2, they're going to go ahead and Ritual summon the Dark Chaos and get back the Mystic Box. 2 towers that can't be affected except by targeting them, and the card that prevents targeting, which is a scary prospect. We draw a Mask of Restrict for turn, but we Silver Summon our Rocks Rose Dragon and carry on. Searching for a copy of the Black Rose Garden, and we have a win condition spotted. Black Rose Garden activates, searching for a copy of the White Rose Dragon. Red Rose Dragon can summon itself and will synchro into Black Rose Dragon. And remember what I said about the bonus burn damage? Well, it's actually enough to carry them to the victory. Towers be darned. It's game 3, and finally, Chimera gets to go first. They'll do so with the Mirror Swords Knight, which is their favorite card to open with. Summoning the Gazelle King of Mythical Claws from the deck because they hard drew the Big Wing Berfament, which is a soft garnet. They'll activate Chimera Fusion. They'll just fuse with the Berfament from their hand to make a, Berfament. And then they'll trigger all the effects. Here's a Mirror Swords Knight back. They'll search for the Fleeting Phantom Master, and they'll send the Skull Archfiend to the graveyard, which of course gives them a search of the Dark Chaos. They'll follow up with the Chimera Fusion, returning itself to the hand from the graveyard. And then they'll use Chimera Fusion, fusing with their Berfament and a Skull Archfiend for a Dragostapelia. And then they'll use the Griffo to set a Mind Shuffle from the deck. They'll go ahead and activate the Mind Shuffle, and now they're going to set up their full Chaos Ritual side of their deck. Here's another copy of Griffo, and they'll discard the Fleeting Phantom Master. Ritual spell gets back a Griffo and itself. And then the Skull Archfiend of Chaos can summon itself by just cleaning up that graveyard, putting that Berfament right back into the deck. They'll activate the Ritual spell, Ritual summoning the Dark Chaos, which gives them back the Chimera Fusion again. And at this point, unfortunately, time in the round was about to be called, so the Rose Dragon player elected to surrender instead of take the double loss. Unfortunate, but it is what it is. Here is Chimera Chaos Ritual. For the Chimera side of things, we have triple Mirror Swords Knight, triple Gazelle, one of the Berfament, and triple Fusion. For the Chaos Ritual side of things, we have one each of the rituals, all 3 of the Griffos, 2 copies of the Skull Archfiend of Chaos, and 1 each of the Light and Darkness Ritual, the Chaos Mystic Box, and Mind Shuffle. I also have 1 copy of the Fleeting Phantom Master as a free agent to help glue the deck together. And for non-engine, we have 3 copies of Chaos Hunter and 3 copies of Godos. These are both high-level monsters that can be returned to the hand for Mind Shuffle, but they can also be used as fusion materials because they are a Fiend and an Illusion, respectively, which are very good for Fusion Berfament. You also have 3 copies of Artifact Lancea, 3 copies of the Fiend-type Skullmeister, 3 copies of Ghost Ogre, 2 copies of Forbidden Chalice, and 2 copies of Book of Eclipse. In the extra deck, we have 2 copies of the Berfament and 1 of the Chimera Fusion. We have 1 of the Azamina Mo Regina and the Soul in Shirathon for Azamina flexible targets. And then we have a whole bunch of flexible different fusion targets here that may or may not be here because Super Poly used to be in the deck. A lot of these are Super Poly targets, but they can just be made with the various fusion materials that are in the deck here. We have the Predaplower Fusion Dragon, the Magnum Reliever, the Starving Venom Fusion Dragon, Regoplant, Dragostapelia, Aerial Eater, and a Mud Dragon. And a lot of these are level 8 monsters, so we'll go ahead and add the Dinkyusu and the number 22 Zombie Stein as well. And then, of course, we have the 2 most important cards in the deck, Ojama King and Ojama Knight. In the side deck, we have Santa Claus, which is a kaiju that doesn't get returned to the hand for Mind Shuffle. We have 3 copies of System Down, 3 copies of Twin Twisters, 2 copies of Blizzard, copies 2 and 3 of the Mystic Box, and 2 copies of Book of Eclipse at home, the Swords of Concealing Light. Here's Rose Dragons, featuring 3 Dragonic Warriors, 3 Red Rose, 3 Rocks Rose, 3 Black Rose Garden, 2 of the White Rose, 2 of the Twilight Black Rose Knight, 2 Vengeful Witch, 1 of the Basil Rose Shoot. And then for free agents, we have 1 Mardell, 1 of the Draconea, 1 Spore Retrain, and the Cactus Bouncer, the criminal himself, alongside the extender of Supe Dustwalker and Supe, combination extender / starter. And then for non-engine, we have 3 copies of Charmy Perulia, 3 Evenly Matched, 3 Dark Rulers, 3 Book of Eclipse, and Raigeki for a Breaker Heavy package. In the extra deck, we have 2 copies of the Rage Rose, 2 copies of Black Rose, 2 copies of Bramble Rose, and the Ruddy Rose for the Rose Dragon cards. And then for the other combo pieces here, we have Dispatter, 1 Garden Rose Maiden, Imperialis, and the Circle of the Fairies. And then for our payoffs here, we have the Crystal Wing at 2, Chaos Angel, and the Vengeance Dragon. In the side deck, we have 3 copies of Vados, 3 copies of Manating Reframing, 3 copies of Mask of Restrict, 3 copies of Non-Fusion Area, and 3 copies of Polynosis to make sure our opponent has no chance of playing the game. Next up, we have another deck that recently got some love on the points list. That's Rescue Ace. Are they Genesis playable now? I don't know, let's find out. They're up against Exosister, which is a deck that admittedly could use some love on the points list, but let's see how it plays out. Rescue Ace will start with Small World. They will banish their fire attributed True King monster and also a Broken to search for a copy of the Rescue Ace Airlifter. Very good. They'll go ahead and normal summon the Airlifter and use this effect to search for an emergency, and it is in fact an emergency. We need a Hydrant. ASAP. Hydrant's going to go ahead and search for a copy of Turbulence on summon, and that'll go ahead and banish 2 to summon itself. And then when Turbulence is summoned, you get to set up to 4 Rescue Ace quick play spells or normal traps from your deck with different names. So here's a whole bunch of stuff. They'll go ahead and activate the alert immediately, which they can do thanks to the Hydrant. That'll go ahead and get them a Rescue Ace Impulse to their hand, which is not just a hand trap that draws 2 cards in this deck. It's actually an engine piece, believe it or not. They'll go ahead also and summon the Preventer that they have in their hand at the end of the turn, and they will pass it over. Now, if you're not familiar with Rescue Ace, let's go over what the board does. Contain is like an Imperm. Extinguish can destroy a monster. Rescue is a Monster Reborn. They have a Cosmic Cyclone. They have the Preventer, which is a Book of Moon, and they have the Turbulence, which is a Pop. Good luck. We will start with a Delta of Invitation and a set card. We're going to try to Tartarus our opponent, but here's a Cosmic Cyclone to banish our field spell and prevent that. And then we'll use an Exosister Pax in response to that. Not that I think this timing's any relevant, but we'll just go ahead and search for a copy of Exosister Betrayal on this same chain. Delta's banished, and we'll go ahead and follow with the 7th Tachyon, revealing number 104, Masquerade for Inuchiki Sayori Hime. And then here is the Pot of Sloth. We'll go ahead and draw 6 cards because our opponent has 6 cards in the field, including the 7th Ascension and 5 other cards. And then we'll go ahead and put back a whole bunch of cards. This is our ideal hand, apparently, and we'll go ahead and play with it. We'll go ahead and use this Martha, summoning herself in an Ellis from the deck, and then we'll follow with the Ichiki Sayori Hime. Normal summon, and then on summon, use the effect to search. That's going to get extinguished. It's destroyed, but we still get the search of the Ellis. And then the Preventer is going to be used to flip that Martha face down, which is pretty brutal. We'll use the Ellis, which can summon itself, and then we'll go ahead and overlay our 2 level 4s for a Michaelis, but it's going to be negated by Contain. We'll go ahead and chain the Michaelis, though, to that to banish it before we lose anything. We'll use the Impulse, and we'll just pack it up and go to the next game. We don't have any follow-up after this. Here's game 2. Let's see how Exosister does on the play. They'll start with 7th Ascension. Good start. They'll add a card from the deck to the hand. Of course, it is the 7th Tachyon. And then they'll go ahead and activate that immediately, searching for a copy of Ichiki Sayori Hime by revealing number 104, putting back a Gordian Slice that they're not going to need. Next up is Exosister Pax, and they'll search for a copy of the Exosister Martha, summoning itself with its own effect and her girlfriend from the deck. That's Ellis. We'll normal summon the Ichiki Sayori Hime with its effect for the bonus normal summon, and then on summon we'll search for a copy of the Exosister Sophia. We'll overlay 2 level 4s for the Exosister Michaelis, and on summon we can detach one to go ahead and get Exosister Betrayal. We'll activate Betrayal, searching for 2 cards. We'll get Martha and an Ellis and discard a basketball before going ahead and targeting Ellis with the Betrayal to bonus normal summon her girlfriend. Here's Stella. On summon, Stella's going to summon a Sophia. And then we'll go ahead and use Sophia to draw a card on the field. Next up is Alice summoning herself, and then we'll overlay 2 level 4s for the Exosister Carmail. During the end phase, we're going to be able to set a card. We'll normal summon Martha with our normal summon before overlaying 2 monsters for the Caspitel. Caspitel will activate. We'll detach to search for a copy of the Exosister Stella. And then we'll overlay these 2 rank 4 monsters for the Exosister Magnifica. Go ahead and set a Pax. In the end phase, we get our Returnia from the deck, and we will pass it over. They will start with the Swords of Concealing Light, forcing out the Exosister Magnifica, banishing it so that it doesn't get our cards set. Next up is the Fire True King Agnamazud, or whatever. That'll be responded to with Carmail, detach 2 to change the effect to instead give us back a 7th Ascension from our graveyard. Because a card left our graveyard, we'll go ahead and tag up with Martha into this Jabreen. Our opponent will summon an Airlifter from their hand. They'll use the effect on summon to search for a spell card. We'll meet that with the Exosister Pax. They're going to chain the Fire Engine in their hand to summon itself. We're using OCG rulings here, so that's why this activates at this timing. We're going to go ahead and chain Magnifica to that to summon another Xyz monster. We're going to chain Airlifter to that to tribute itself and summon a Rescue Ace from the hand. Here comes Preventer from the Rescue Ace. Here comes our tag into the Michaelis. The Fire Engine still comes down. Pax resolves. Here's a Martha, which we'll summon. And then finally, the search of the spell is an emergency. Fire Engine triggers on summon. We'll also trigger the Exosister Betrayal to banish one of the monsters sent to the graveyard. Chain Link 3 will be Exosister Michaelis to banish a card. We'll go ahead and chain the Rescue Ace Preventer to set the Michaelis face down. We'll chain the Jabreen to that. We'll go ahead and try to negate the Fire Engine, but that's going to be chained to by Emergency Chain Link 6, which is going to summon a monster from the deck and then tribute a name, presumably the Fire Engine, before it's negated. That's going to be responded to Chainlink 7 by Exosister Returnia. We're going to target to banish a card. We targeted this Fire Engine, and then we'll choose another effect on resolution. That is the final Chainlink. So Fire Engine is banished, and then we will select to make an Xyz summon. Here's another Magnifica. Chainlink 6 resolves. Here comes a Hydrant, tribute a monster. Chainlink 5 resolves, nothing happens. Chainlink 4 resolves, our monster is flipped. Chainlink 2 resolves, 3 resolves, nothing happens. Chainlink 2 resolves, Betrayal resolves, forcing them to banish that monster from the graveyard. And then Chainlink 1, we finally resolve the Fire Engine, which was not negated because it was banished first. Here comes an Impulse from the deck. Okay, here are some trigger effects. We have the Rescue Ace Preventer in the graveyard. When it's sent to the graveyard, you can summon back a banished Rescue Ace, and throughout that whole chain, we banished this Fire Engine and we sent it to the graveyard. So we'll go ahead and target to bring it back. We'll chain the Magnifica to that. It was just summoned. We can try to banish a card. They'll chain the Impulse to that, tagging out to go ahead and summon another monster from the deck. And then we'll chain the Magnifica to that. We'll tag out ourselves. Here's a Carmail. Here's a Hydrant from the deck. We'll banish one monster. Unfortunately, we can't banish both Hydrants. We would certainly love to do that, I'm sure. And then here is the Fire Engine back from the banishment. Carmail will activate. We will get a set in the end phase. And then they'll use the Hydrant in their main phase to just go ahead and search for a Turbulence. Turbulence can come down by banishing 2 names. And now that it's on the field, let's set up to 4 cards from the deck. We already have the Contain in hand, so we'll set 3. And then just set the Contain manually. Go into battle phase and attack, and then use our rescue to get back a name still in the battle phase. Here's the Preventer. It'll attack. We can remove some names. The first battle didn't work because Exosister Michaelis, of course, cannot be destroyed by battle with a monster special summoned from the graveyard. They'll go ahead and pass. We get a Returnia. We draw a Betrayal for turn, and they will use Alert in the standby phase for an Impulse. We'll flip summon Martha and then normal summon our Stella and then use Exosister Returnia to try to banish a card and then get a bonus effect. That'll be responded to with Preventer flipping our monster face down. We'll still be able to banish their Turbulence, but then we can't select either mode of Returnia. We don't qualify for either, so we'll do nothing with it. Well, we'll just go ahead and pass. We set 2 bluff cards and hope they have nothing. If they draw for turn, it's a Broken, and they have the Hydrant to search for an Airlifter as well. They'll normal summon the Airlifter, and then they'll search for the Rescue Ace HQ. That'll go ahead and allow them to put a whole bunch of their cards back into the deck and then draw a card. And they'll go ahead and extinguish Martha for good measure while they're at it. At this point, we pack it up. We have no more interruptions and we have nothing left to do but lose. Gotta say, Rescue Ace looking pretty good. Here is the Rescue Ace list. 3 Airlifters, 3 Quick Attackers, 3 Impulse, 2 Turbulence, 2 Preventer, and 2 Hydrants alongside 1 Fire Engine and 1 Fire Attacker for the monster lineup. For the Spell and Trap lineup, we got 1 of each: Alert, Emergency, Rescue, Contain, Extinguish, and BHQ. And then we have the 3 Small Worlds to help search for whatever card we need between all of our random fire monsters. We also have 3 copies of the Fire True King, 3 copies of Broken for extenders, and then for non-engine, we have 3 Skullmeister, 3 Ogres, and 3 Cosmic Cyclones. As for the extra deck, well, we don't really do that here. Historically, Rescue Ace has been a Link deck, but it looks like we just kind of threw in a whole bunch of random Xyz monsters that we might be able to summon based on the various levels that we have available to us. We have the Typhon, we have 2 number C107s, 1 of the Leviathan, 1 Jormungandr to summon with the Leviathan, 1 of the number C104, 1 number C102 alongside 3 copies of number 105. We have the Dempsey, we have the Light Dragon Adagnister, Argostar's Adventurous Arion, a Gretasaurus Giga Cannon, and a Tornado Dragon. Inside deck, we have 1 copy of Durandal, which can search for a Fire Warrior. We have 1 copy of the Lightning Strike Kaiju, searchable by number C107 with 7th Tachyon, though I don't see 7th Tachyon, so that's a little bit weird. We have 2 copies of Santa Claus, 2 copies of Gordian Slicer, 3 copies of Blizzard, 3 copies of the Swords of Concealing Light, and 3 Typhoons. Our next matchup is a very exciting mirror match. Here we have the Archfiend Chaos Ritual Mirror Match. This is such a cool mirror match. Check it out. We will begin with the topside player and their Archfiend's Usurpation. They'll place a copy of the Archfiend's Playtime face down, which they can activate immediately thanks to Usurpation. They'll summon a copy of Bone Archfiend from their deck, and then they'll use the effect to send a copy of Vision Resonator to the graveyard. Bone Archfiend is now level 5, and that is a Crimson Gaia in their hand. They'll activate Crimson Gaia and then use that effect to search for a copy of the Soul Resonator. Normal summon Soul Resonator and use the effect, and that searches for Griffo. Plus, they have a level 5 and a 3 to make a nice Scarred Dragon Archfiend. They'll use the Griffo effect, set a Mind Shuffle directly from their deck, and use the effect immediately. Go ahead and start searching and discarding. They'll search a copy of the Dark Chaos since they already have the Skull Archfiend, and then pitch the Skull Archfiend in their hand. That sends the Ritual Spell, and they'll get a copy of the Blackluster Soldier before they use the Ritual Spell to recycle itself and the Griffo. Next up, they'll use the Ritual Spell tributing the Blackluster Soldier for a copy of Dark Chaos, which gets back that Archfiend's Usurpation from earlier, and then the Skull Archfiend of Chaos is going to put back most of the cards and summon itself back. Bone Archfiend can send Crimson Gaia to summon itself in defense position. They'll go ahead and set a Cosmic Cyclone and the Usurpation and pass it over. Bottom side player draws a Cosmic Cyclone for turn, which is a great draw. And then the top side player will immediately use their Mind Shuffle effect to search. They'll be met by an Archfiend's Usurpation. They'll go ahead and get their own copy of Archfiend's Playtime. Top side player searches and discards Skull Archfiend, which lets them get into the Blackluster Soldier. Bottom side player goes to main phase, activates their Archfiend's Playtime. That's going to be met by the Mind Shuffle, tagging out the Dark Chaos, and that'll be met by Cosmic Cyclone. Now that Dark Chaos's protection effect is offline, go ahead and Cosmic that Mind Shuffle. Goodbye. As you'll see, Cosmic Cyclone is one of the most impactful cards in this mirror match, if not the most impactful card. Archfiend's Playtime resolves, summoning the Bone Archfiend from the deck. It'll activate its effect, increasing its level, sending Vision Resonator. Stop me if this sounds familiar. They'll search for a copy of Crimson Gaia. Crimson Gaia activates, and that'll search them a copy of nothing because of Cosmic Cyclone. Okay, that's been shut down, but they do have a Resonator call anyway to get them into the Soul Resonator. That'll be met by Griffo setting a copy of the Mystic Box, but here is a Soul Resonator all the same. Normal summon the Soul Resonator, activate, and there is their own copy of Griffo. Synchro up into the Scarred Dragon Archfiend, and we are having a bit of a Spider-Man match here as we use Griffo to set our own Mind Shuffle and then activate it. No Cosmics in sight, luckily. Go ahead and use its search effect. Here's Skull Archfiend of Chaos, and there it goes. Send the Ritual Spell, and there is our copy of Dark Chaos. Skull Archfiend can recycle 3 of our opponent's cards specifically to summon itself. Normally you have to recycle one of your own cards, but in the mirror match you can shuffle exclusively their cards, which is pretty devastating actually. That's going to go ahead and be met by the Archfiend's Usurpation. And then we'll use our Ritual Spell to get back the Griffo. We have to play through a Ghastly Glitch, but that shouldn't be too bad. Ritual Spell summons out the Dark Chaos. And on summon, that's going to get us back our copy of Cosmic Cyclone. We'll use it immediately to snipe the Mystic Box right off the field. And then the Dark Chaos will go ahead and banish their Skull Archfiend face down. That's gotta hurt. Royal Archfiend's up next. We'll go ahead and use it to get a copy of Usurpation. Go to the battle phase. And our opponent, while they still have a chance, they're going to go ahead and use the Ghastly Glitch. They'll destroy their own card. And then they'll go ahead and let them get their Skull Archfiend in the graveyard. Their Skull Archfiend that was destroyed will float, though, into the Red Dragon Archfiend from the extra deck. Go ahead and battle. 3,000 damage, but topside player is still alive. We're going to go ahead and set a Pair Bear Scare and a Ghastly Glitch and pass it over to them. Mind Shuffle in the draw phase for the Blackluster Soldier, discarding the Usurpation, and topside player does draw Cosmic Cyclone, so as soon as Dark Chaos is out of the picture, that is vulnerable. They will use a Kaiju over the Dark Chaos before going into their own Skull Archfiend of Chaos, summoning it, shuffling back 3 cards. Normal summon a Soul Resonator, searching for a Griffo. And then they'll go ahead and use Griffo and set a card from their deck. That'll be met by the bottom side player's Mind Shuffle, which they return this Kaiju to the hand, but it's their opponent's Kaiju, so it goes to the opponent's hand. And then in possibly the worst trade of all time, it gets Cosmic. So not only did you give your opponent a Kaiju, you didn't get your effect, which is very, very brutal, in fact. Here's a Mind Shuffle from the deck from the Griffo. Go ahead and use that immediately. Go ahead and get a search. It's going to be met by the Ghastly Glitch, though. There's no Dark Chaos, so they can go ahead and destroy the trap card and send their own copy of Soul Resonator to the graveyard. Next up, Bone Archfiend is going to go ahead and send the Blackluster Soldier to the graveyard to summon itself back from the graveyard. And that's going to be met by the Pair Bear Scare that was set. Pair Bear Scare will transfer over to the opponent's hand, but actually, you might not realize it, but this player, the topside player, has no more pushes left, and it's already lethal on board, so we're going to be going to game 2. Topside player gets to go first again. This time they will start with a Crimson Gaia. Activate the effect and search for a Soul Resonator. Go ahead and normal summon the Soul Resonator. That'll search them a copy of Bone Archfiend. They'll use the effect of the Bone Archfiend. They'll send the Crimson Gaia to summon itself, and then use the second effect to send the Vision Resonator to the graveyard, increasing its own level to 5. Vision Resonator activates searching another copy of Crimson Gaia, and then 5 plus 3 equals 8. Those are Crimson Call that they had in their hand, and they'll use that to search for Griffo this time, and then Griffo will be activated. They'll go ahead and set the Mind Shuffle from their deck, activate that, and use the effect immediately. There is their Skull Archfiend of Chaos, and there it goes. And they'll go ahead and search for their Dark Chaos with it. Ritual spell in the graveyard returns itself and the Griffo. And then we'll go ahead and use the Ritual spell. We'll banish 2 from the graveyard this time to summon the Dark Chaos and get back the Ritual spell. We'll set and pass it over. We have a set playtime and a Cosmic Cyclone. Wind Dragon of Ra Sphere mode is drawn for turn, and unfortunately, topside player only has 2 monsters in play. They'll immediately fire off the Mind Shuffle in the draw phase to get them access to the Blackluster Soldier. Go to main phase and then activate Crimson Gaia. That'll be met by a Mind Shuffle, but there is a Cosmic Cyclone for that, so goodbye. Crimson Gaia will resolve its effect to search. There is a Vision Resonator in hand. Normal summon Soul Resonator. That's going to be met by the opponent's Griffo. Griffo's going to set the box from the deck as Soul Resonator gets our own copy of Griffo. Activate Resonator Call, searching for another copy of Soul Resonator. Then we'll go ahead and special summon Vision Resonator and use our Griffo. Go ahead and set a Mind Shuffle from the deck and use its effect. Go ahead and try to get into a Skull Archfiend of Chaos of our own, but that's the opponent's Cosmic Cyclone in kind. Neither of us have access to it, and that was our last push. Plus, they have Blackluster Soldier in hand. But game 2, we'll just go settle it in game 3. Here's game 3, and finally, the bottom side player gets to go first. They'll normal summon Soul Resonator, use its effect, searching for Griffo. Activate an Archfiend's Usurpation. They'll set an Archfiend's Trap from their deck. They select the playtime, and they'll activate it immediately, summoning an Archfiend's monster from their deck. They select the Royal Archfiend, and then they'll immediately use the effect, tributing itself, searching for Bone Archfiend. Bone Archfiend activates, discarding the Mind Shuffle that they've drawn for turn, and they'll go ahead and use the Bone Archfiend to send a Vision Resonator as well. It'll be very interesting to see how they get that Mind Shuffle back in rotation for themselves. Vision Resonator activates in the graveyard, searching for a copy of the Crimson Gaia. Crimson Gaia activates. Go ahead and search for a copy of the Crimson Call. Next up, we'll sync her up into our Scar Dragon Archfiend as Crimson Call goes ahead and gets us a copy of Skullmeister. That is a searchable card. We will set a Cosmic Cyclone and simply pass it over there. Our opponent draws Mind Shuffle for turn. Out of all the cards in their deck, I'm sure if they knew they were going to draw Mind Shuffle, they would have chosen to skip their draw phase. They'll use a copy of Archfiend's Usurpation. Go ahead and get a copy of the Ghastly Glitch, and then activate a Crimson Gaia. Crimson Gaia gets them a copy of Vision Resonator, as they normal summon Soul Resonator and search for a copy of Bone Archfiend. Bone Archfiend pitches the Vision Resonator to summon itself, and Vision Resonator gets another copy of Crimson Gaia. Bone Archfiend will activate its next effect, sending another copy of Soul Resonator. It's now level 5, and 5 plus 3 equals 8 for the Scar Dragon Archfiend. Bottom side player summons a Chaos Hunter in response to the Scar Dragon Archfiend. So we'll go to battle phase, attack over it, and then we'll go to main phase 2, where we set our Mind Shuffle, attempt to pass it over. But in the end phase, Cosmic Cyclone will snipe that Mind Shuffle right off the face of the planet. Dark Chaos is drawn for turn, and Crimson Gaia will get back a Crimson Call as well. Crimson Call activates, searching for another copy of Soul Resonator from the deck. Normal summon Soul Resonator. That gets us a copy of Griffo. Activate Griffo, and we can set a card from the deck. We'll select the Mystic Box, and then Bone Archfiend in the graveyard can send the Crimson Gaia to the graveyard, summon itself, but that's going to be met by a Skullmeister, sneaky little Skullmeister. We'll go ahead and synchro 3 plus 8 equals 11 for the Stormbane Dragon Disturbim. That'll trigger the Scar Dragon Archfiend in the graveyard. It was sent to the graveyard as a synchro material, so not only do you get the Red Dragon Archfiend, but you also get to destroy a card. And then we'll use the Disturbim here, which can banish to banish a card after they float into their monsters. We'll banish the Scar Dragon Archfiend here. Banish the Crimson Gaia, even though they have 2 Red Dragon Archfiends. Go to battle phase. Attack, attack, attack. Get over all their guys as Crimson Call. Gives us a second attack for our Red Dragon Archfiend. That's not a lethal blow, though, so we'll just pass it over to them. They'll go ahead and draw another Crimson Gaia for turn. This is just the duel of the Gaias, I guess. They'll activate Crimson Gaia, and they'll get back the Soul Resonator. Normal summon Soul Resonator, searching for a copy of Griffo. Activate a Ghastly Glitch, destroying one of their own Crimson Gaias, and then sending their Skull Archfiend of Chaos to the graveyard. That lets them search for the Dark Chaos and get the Ritual spell into rotation. At that, they'll activate another copy of Crimson Gaia, and then send it immediately to summon a copy of Bone Archfiend. Then they'll use the Skull Archfiend of Chaos, trying to summon itself back, but that's going to be met by a Skullmeister, so no shuffling for you this turn. They'll use the Ritual spell, get back the Skull Archfiend of Chaos and the Ritual spell. And then Bone Archfiend is going to send a copy of Soul Resonator to modulate up to level 5. 5 plus 3 is 8, and that's a Red Dragon Archfiend, the original one. And they're going to use the Ritual spell to banish another copy of the original Red Dragon Archfiend to Ritual summon the Black Chaos. Black Chaos activates, getting back a third copy of Crimson Gaia, which they will activate. And then we'll go ahead and banish the back row face down. Battle phase, they attack with the original Red Dragon Archfiend, and that does trigger the effect of Crimson Gaia to Book of Eclipse the opponent's board, and then the Red Dragon Archfiend can blow it up, but we're going to have some trigger effects. Disturbum gets a float, and so does Crimson Gaia. And funny enough, both players have selected the Scarred Dragon Archfiend as their float. As they stare at each other, they now have a Kaiju battle. They battle, and then both of them, of course, when destroyed, can summon a Red Dragon Archfiend from the extra deck. So, of course, they have to battle, and then the Dark Chaos will finally get in for 28 direct. Main phase 2, we can use Griffo getting into the box, and topside player is looking really good right now. Bottom side player draws a Ghastly Glitch. That's not a combo enabler. They'll summon a Bone Archfiend. They have nowhere to go with it. They don't have another Vision Resonator in the deck. So we're going to pack it up and say GG to the topside player. Here's the list of the bottom side player, but as you'll see, they're actually quite similar. They have one each of the Ritual monsters, 2 copies of Griffo, 2 copies of the Skull Archfiend of Chaos, 2 copies of the Ritual spell, 1 box, and 1 Mind Shuffle. For the Resonator or Archfiend package, or both, I guess, Soul Resonator at 3, 1 Vision, 3 Crimson Gaia, 3 Resonator Call, 2 of the Royal Archfiend, 2 of the Bone Archfiend, 3 of the Usurpation, 1 Ghastly Glitch, 1 Playtime. And then for non-engine, they're running 2 of the Pear Bear Scare, 3 Chalice, 3 Cyclone, and 3 Skullmeister. In the extra deck, we have 3 copies of the original Red Dragon Archfiend, 2 copies of Scar Dragon Archfiend, 2 copies of Scarlight Red Dragon Archfiend, 1 Red Rising Dragon, 1 Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Bane, 1 Stormbane Dragon Disturbum, 1 Draco Berserker of the Tenyi, 1 Dark End Dragon, the Buster Dragon, the Kubelt, the Blade Dragon, and 1 copy of Dingirsu. In the side deck here, we have 1 copy of Dark Chaos. We have 2 copies of the Chaos Mystic box, 1 copy of Crimson Call, 1 copy of King's Resonance, 1 copy of Similar Archfiends, 3 copies of the Basketball, 3 copies of Chaos Hunter, and 3 copies of Twin Twisters. I'll get more into the weeds on how the siding pattern works with this other deck list. This is the deck list of the topside player, and this is actually from the player who got second place at Euros with this same strategy. So this is a really good player showing us a very excellent deck list. As you can see, it's actually very similar, and I'll get more into the weeds here with how the deck works. So we have 1 each of the Ritual monsters, and then only 1 of the Griffo, saving the 10 points to put it other places into the engine. 3 copies of the Skull Archfiend of Chaos, 1 additional one to replace the copy of Griffo. We have 2 copies of the Light and Darkness Ritual, 1 box, 1 Mind Shuffle. And then when we get into the Fiend side of things, we have 3 of the Soul Resonator again, 1 Vision, 3 Crimson Gaias, and then we have all 3 of the Royal Archfiends, and we do not have the Resonator Calls. The Resonator Calls, instead, we have 3 copies of Humongous. We do have 2 copies of Bone Archfiend, also 3 copies of the Usurpation, 1 Ghastly Glitch, 1 Playtime. And then for non-engine here, we have 3 copies of Skullmeister, 2 Cosmic Cyclone, the third one's in the side, 3 copies of Chalice, and 2 copies of DD Crow. In the extra deck, it's almost all the same, except for the fact that this one doesn't have 2 Scarlight, it only has 1 Scarlight, and the second one's been replaced by the Hot Red Dragon Archfiend, and the Dingirsu's been replaced by the Black-Winged Dragon. But other than that, it is 13 of the same extra deck monsters, just lots and lots of floating into Red Dragon Archfiend as you loop your Ritual monsters. Very cool deck. In the side deck, I asked them for commenting about why they play the Dark Chaos, and they said, I don't do that anymore, so fair enough. I asked them about the hats, and they said, I don't do that anymore, so fair enough. I asked about the Crimson Call, the King's Resonance, and the Simul Archfiends, and They're explaining to me that what you do is, depending on the matchup, you pick the one of these essentially that your opponent is the most weak to. Are they weak to more gas? Are they weak to the interruptions of the Book of Eclipse and summoning like the giant red dragon archfiend that can't be affected? Or are they weak to the floodgate effect of similar archfiends? And you essentially just side in the one copy of the one that is useful in that matchup, and then you just leave it at that, and then this just makes your engine more flexible into various matchups. We have the one more Cosmic Cyclone for any matchup, presumably like the Mirror match or any other matchup where the Cosmic Cyclone will be strong. 3 copies of Gravekeeper's Watcher here, which is a spicy new tech. You're going to start seeing this everywhere, I think, if you haven't already. This is a hand trap that you can discard it from your hand to negate and destroy an effect that would cause your opponent to... that could cause your opponent to discard when it resolves. So this negates and destroys cards such as Raviel and Hamon, or any search card that does like a search and then a discard. It's a very versatile card, and it's very good into the Sacred Beast matchup, and it's 0 points. So you're going to be seeing this a lot. It's a really popular sideboard hand trap all of a sudden. We also have 3 copies of Debunk and 3 copies of Twin Twisters. In this next matchup, the topside players playing a deck that players have been waiting to play, and finally it got some love on the points list, and it's looking pretty good now. Topside players on Shaddoll, and they're up against Darklord. Who will come out on top? Well, Shaddoll won the die roll, so they're looking good to start. Lev Shaddoll Fusion will be the first action, sending Infernoid Evil to the graveyard, which searches them a copy of the Void Unleashing, which they can activate, and since they have a Shaddoll card in hand, then go ahead and use the effect to search for 2 Shaddoll cards of different types. They'll select the Rush Shaddoll and the El Shaddoll Fusion, and then they'll go ahead and discard a card. They'll discard an Impulse, not too helpful, but they'll have El Shaddoll Fusion up next. They're going to fuse with this Ariel and the Squamata. Ariel's not too useful right now, but the Squamata surely is. Channeling 1 Squamata, channeling 2 Apgalone, Simulator Moment, negate yourself now, as we'll go ahead and use Squamata to send a Wendy, and then Wendy's going to summon a dragon from the deck. Next up, Lev Shaddoll Fusion. We're just going to tribute that Apgalone anyway. Summon a Construct straight from the extra deck with 0 attack points. Chainlink 1 Apgalone, Chainlink 2 Construct. Construct sends the Tohu to the graveyard, and then the Apgalone's going to search and discard a Hedgehog. So we're going to go ahead and trigger both of those effects. Hedgehog's going to go ahead and get us a Squamata in hand, and then Tohu's going to banish 1, 2, 3. Here's a Mishrarer. We're going to pay a and feel great and get a copy of the original, the one and only Shaddoll Fusion. We'll fuse with our 2 fusion monsters on the board into Shekinaga, and that will of course trigger both of their effects in the graveyard. Mishrarer is going to summon back the Construct, this time in defense position and with all of its attack points, and the Construct's going to get back that El Shaddoll Fusion. Construct, the summon effect is not once per turn, so now that it's been special summoned, we'll go ahead and send a Beast to the graveyard and get a cheeky draw 1. That is a regular Shaddoll Fusion off the top. Pretty good for follow-up. We'll set our El Shaddoll, we'll set our Resh, and we'll pass it over. Darklord player starts with a fusion deployment. They reveal Grand View and all to summon a Blazing Cartesia, the Virtuous. They'll follow it up with a Darklord Ixchel, discarding itself and a Google it for a draw 2, and then a search of a Forbidden card. They'll go ahead and get Forbidden Droplet. Next up is Super Poly. They'll fuse with their Cartesia and the opponent's Shekinaga into a Chorozo. That's at least 1 body gone, but Shek does get a card back. They'll get a Shaddoll Fusion. Banishment of the Darklords is up next. They'll search for a Darklord DJ. Normal summon to DJ, and that's going to be met by the Resh Shaddoll Incarnation. They'll go ahead and use that to set an Ariel face down. They won't use it yet, but the Indulged Darklord will come out from the deck. Activate, but that's going to be met by a Ghost Mourner in Moonlit Chill. That's got to hurt. Darklord Dance is up next. We're going to banish 2 to summon the Evening Star, and we'll set 2 names from the deck. We have a Contact and a Sanctified Darklord here. Next up, Evening Star is going to try to copy the Banishment of the Darklords, and it will succeed, searching for a copy of the Morning Star. Go to battle phase. Evening Star is going to attack into the Construct, but of course Construct has the effect that it destroys a special summon monster that it battles, but we're going to negate that with the Forbidden Droplet in the damage step, which we can do since Forbidden Droplet modifies attack and defense. Construct's destroyed by battle. It'll add back that Resh Shaddoll. We'll go to main phase 2 and activate Darklord Contact. We'll get back a DJ. We'll pass it over, but in the end phase, our opponent's going to go ahead and use El Shaddoll Fusion. They're going to send a Squamata and an Ariel to summon the Anoyatilis, and this is not good for us. They're going to banish 3 cards from our graveyard. There goes both of our Dances and a Contact. Plus, they get to send a Tohu Gristia as well, banishing 2 for the Wendy Kuru. They'll go ahead and immediately use the Wendy Kuru effect on summon. They'll flip up a Dragon and flip down the Evening Star, and that triggers the Dragon effect to return a card on the field to the hand. They'll return one of our back rows to the hand, sniping it in the end phase there as they go and draw for turn. They draw a Lev Shaddoll fusion, and they'll activate regular Shaddoll fusion. And because we do have this Chorozo face up, they can fuse from the deck. They send 3 materials from the deck to the graveyard: a Wendy, a Hedgehog, and a Keldo. Ugh. And they summon the Mishrarer. Wendy and Hedgehog are both going to trigger immediately. Hedgehog gets them a Squamata in hand. And then we'll go ahead and use the Lev Shaddoll fusion. We're going to tag out into the El Shaddoll construct. We're going to get both effects to trigger. The one in the graveyard gets back the Ariel, and then the construct sends a Schism to the graveyard. We can now pay 8 to feel great. Here is our El Shaddoll fusion. We'll go ahead and use it immediately, fusing off Dragon and Construct for an App Cologne. That's going to trigger the Dragon to pop the back row. App Cologne's going to negate the Chorozo, and we get a float back from the fusion monster that got sent to the graveyard. Activate Lev Shaddoll, send the Fossil Warrior Skull Knight. This can just send whatever the heck you want to the graveyard. And then this has a relevant graveyard effect to banish to destroy that. Morningstar has like, what, 4,000? 3,000 defense points. Pretty relevant. They'll attack. And this is going to be a decent amount of damage, but it's not a lethal amount. We go to main phase 2. We set a Rush Shaddoll. We set a Shaddoll Schism. It's a pretty formidable board. Darklord player gets back Blazing Cartesia, but it's not looking good. Here's a banishment of the Darklords off the top, though. Pretty good. They get a Darklord Googlet, normal summon the Blazing Cartesia, and then they'll fuse using the 2 Darklords in their hand for an Evening Star. They get to set 2 and then also get a search from the Googlet. Here is a Tezca. I'll call it Tezca. Banish DJ to get back a Morning Star, and then you'll use Evening Star trying to copy the banishment of the Darklords. That's met by the Keldo, the Sacred Protector, shuffling the copy target back into the deck before we can copy it. That'll cause our effect not to resolve. And they're not even done yet. Here's Shaddoll Schism. Here they make an App Cologne and then set a monster with the same attribute to the graveyard, so our Evening Star is gone as well. And then the App Cologne negates the Cartesia forever for some reason, and in the end phase they'll go ahead and use the Resh. They'll get back a Shaddoll Dragon, and it's looking like wraps here. They'll go ahead and draw for turn. They get a Void Unleashing. They flip the Dragon. They can go ahead and return the Cartesia. And we're going to go to game 2 and see what that has for us. Here's game 2, and Darklord is starting off hoping that Ixchel Draw 2 will get them something good. And it does. They get the Darklord Contact, but it's met by a DD Crow, which is honestly really rough. They'll over summon the Blazing Cartesia, and that's going to be met by the Rescue Ace Impulse into the Rescue Ace Fire Attacker. Cartesia is going to go ahead and perform a fusion summon with herself and the Nashon in hand. They'll make a Granguinol, which can send the Googlet to the graveyard. That's going to give them a search of a DJ. They'll be met by the Fire Attacker, draw to discard 1 effect. And they're going to meet that with the Herald of Orange Light. We'll have to discard our DJ, though, for that, leaving us on Granguinol, Pass, and a Dream. Shaddoll draws for turn, and they have the Wake Up Kuro in their hand, which means they can search for the Wendy, and they discard a card, and they'll discard the Squamata. Where is our Gravekeeper's Watcher when we need it? Shaddoll Squamata will go ahead and send the Tohu Gristia to the graveyard. They'll banish a bunch of materials for a Mishrarer. That'll cause us to tag out our Granguinol for a Despian Luluwa Lilith, so at least we have 1 negation, possibly. They'll go ahead and pay 8 with the Mishrarer to feel great and get a Void Unleashing, which they will activate, revealing that Wendy in their hand. Searching for a Rush Shaddoll and Shaddoll Fusion, discarding the Kuro. Here's a Shaddoll Fusion, nice extra deck monster idiots. They'll fuse using 2 monsters from their deck. They'll make an App Cologne. That'll negate the Lulu forever. And then there's also a Beast and an Ariel in the graveyard to contend with as well. Beast is going to be a draw, and Ariel's going to nuke the graveyard. Luluwa Lilith can be chained to at least negate the negate. But that is a small consolation. They'll attack with the App Cologne. That'll cause it to float into a Lev Shaddoll from the deck, and they'll discard the Wendy. That'll trigger the Wendy still in the damage step. Here is a Shaddoll Hedgehog face down. They'll pass over to main phase 2 there and use Lev Shaddoll, and once again, they'll send the Fossil Warrior Skull Knight. They'll use it to remove the Luluwa Lilith, and then use Lev to tag into Wendy Crew. And now we're going to get 2 effects. Wendy Crew's going to flip up that Hedgehog, and then the Mishrarer is going to summon back a Wendy. We'll use the Hedgehog effect, and we'll get a Shaddoll spell or trap. That is El Shaddoll Fusion. We're going to set and pass that with a Rush Shaddoll and an El Shaddoll. Darklord player needs a good top deck, and it's the Herald of Orange Light. This doesn't do a whole lot except for fuel the super polymerization. We'll fuse using 2 Shaddoll monsters into a Mixhausia the Confounder. But Shaddoll monsters, they kind of like being used as fusion material, so that super poly isn't the most impactful in the world. They get back 2 cards as we get a Mixalzia, and then they'll summon that Shaddoll. They'll use the Shaddoll to summon back the Apcalon, which will negate our Mixalzia. Ouch. We'll try to get over the Wendy in battle, but we don't even get that. El Shaddoll Fusion comes down into a Mishrarer, which is bigger than us, and they get to float into a whole bunch of different effects. Draw a discard, banish to summon, summon from the deck, new chain, draw a card. It's now 9 cards or 8 cards to 1, and we'll just pack it up and say GD to Shaddoll. What a terrifying deck with the new points list. Here's the Darklord deck list, and I promise you, the deck is fine. It actually did quite well at the tournament, but Shaddoll, just had a really good showing in this match. We have 3 copies of Ixchel, 3 copies of DJ, and 3 copies of Google It, 3 copies of Indulge, 2 Morning Stars, and then 1 each of the Tezca, Desire, and Nastin. For the spells and traps, we have 3 copies of Banishment, 2 copies of Dance, 1 Contact, Rebellion, Sanctified Darklord, and 1 Angel in Darkness. You also have the Cartesia package, 3 Deployment, and the 1 Cartesia, and the Heralds, 3 each. We have a couple of search targets for Google It. We have the Droplet and Chalice, and 2 Super Polys to round out the non-engine. In the extra deck, we have 2 copies of First Darklord, 3 copies of Evening Star. And then for all the different flexible fusion targets, we have a Luce, we have Starving Venom, the Mixalzia, which can make some of these. We have the Granhuinol, the Despian Quertus. We have a Garura, a Mud Dragon, the Chirozzo, the Lulu Wallet, which you can summon off the Granhuinol, and Fairy Cheer Girl, which I was told it was the MVP with the just draw 1 top deck, what you need all day. There are some other replays of it going off. It's very funny to watch this card actually put in work. In the side deck, we have 1 copy of the Capricious Darklord. Not sure what that's for. I'll have to go ask. We have also the Chalice and Lance as alternate Google It targets alongside a playset of Dress, presumably for the Blitzclique matchup. 3 copies of Skullmeister, 3 copies of Purple Light, and 3 copies of Twin Twister to fill out the side. And here is Genesys Shaddoll, piloted by the best Genesys Shaddoll player I know. 3 copies of Squamata and 2 copies of Gristia, 2 copies of Hedgehog, 2 copies of Wendy, 1 Ariel, 1 Beast, 1 Dragon. It really feels like there's infinity of all of these monsters when you watch the Shaddoll deck in action, but there's so few. They have 3 copies of the Lev Shaddoll, 3 copies of Void Unleashing, 2 El Shaddoll, and 1 Shaddoll Fusions, 1 each of the Rest Shaddoll and Schisms as well for the Shaddoll cards. 24 Shaddoll cards, but boy, do they work well. We have a Wake Up package, 3 copies of Kuro, and 1 Mocha. We also have 3 Mathematicians, people who played Shaddoll back in 2014, 2015. You should be happy to see Mathematician back. It's still just as good as it was back then. And we're also playing a Fire Ace Impulse, Rescue Ace Impulse into Rescue Ace Fire Attacker package. The 3 Impulses and the 1 Fire Attacker. It's pretty good in Shaddoll, actually, because when you get to discard your Shaddoll effects, it's pretty scary for your opponent. And then for the rest of our non-engine, we have 2 copies of Ghost Ogre, 1 Keldo, and 2 Mourners. In the extra deck here, we have 2 copies of Apcalon, 2 copies of Construct, 2 copies of Mishrarer, and 2 copies of Wendy Kuru, and then 1 each of Shekanaga, Noitelis, Gristia, and the Evil. And then we have a couple of other fusions that are good sends for the Lev Shaddoll. We have the Skull Knight, the Skull Wagon, and the Baberon, which this one can nuke your opponent's attack points to go for a lethal line. In the side deck, we're going to go ahead and have 3 Kaijus with 3 different names, 3 copies of the Kaiju Slumber, 2 copies of Blizzard, 2 copies of MST, 2 My Body's a Shield, 2 of the DD Crow, and a Cheeky Ghost Spell and Haunted Mansion. In this next matchup, we have 2 very powerful decks. Invoked Chimera on the top side, and Blitzclique on the bottom side. We'll start with a Magical Meltdown on the Invoke side, searching for Alistair the Invoker, the original. And then they'll activate the Sacred Spirit Sword Iwas, summoning the Divine Spirit of the Law from the deck. They'll banish it for its effect to get an Alistair the Reminiscent in hand, and bonus normal summon 1 Spellcaster. They'll select the Alistair the Invoker, and when Alistair's normal summons, you'll get, you said it, Invocation. They will use their normal summon on Alistair the Reminiscent and banish Sorath for cost to get the Invocation Sword. That's both Invocations in hand. And then they activate Invocation in what I would call a perplexing sequence of plays. They use the Invocation, they banish the Alistair the Invoker, okay. They use the Iwas in the hand to make Ragin, and then they followed up with the Sword. They'll fuse with the Alistair the Reminiscent and the Sorath in the banishment to make the Baberon. Now, I might be missing something about playing around certain hand traps, but I believe if you had reversed the sequencing, what you could have done is use the Invocation Sword and use it to fuse with the Alistair the Invoker to make the Baberon, since it can use either Alistair. And then you activate Invocation which would banish the Alistair the Invoker from the graveyard. And notably, that would leave you with the Alistair the Reminiscent still on the field, which, as you see, would be potentially valuable. Baberon activates on summon here. We'll get the Viracam. Viracam activates summoning itself. And then we'll go ahead and get a sword from the deck with it. And then the sword's going to return the Alistair the Reminiscent to the hand. And then we're going to use the Alistair the Reminiscent effect to special summon itself here. And then go into a Chorozo. But if we had already retained the Alistair the Reminiscent on the board, we could make the Chorozo and then put the Alistair back in our hand as follow-up. So we're not going to be able to have Alistair in hand as follow-up due to this sequencing, where we could have with the other sequencing. Now, again, I'm not sure if there's a hand trap that I'm not thinking about that play plays around, but it seems better to me. Anyway, we're going to set the Chimera Fusion. We have the Invocation Sword set, and we'll actually use a cheeky play of the Iwas and the Chorozo synchroing into the Vengeance Dragon, which is, I think, is a cute addition to the end board. And then we'll go ahead and use Invocation in the main phase 2 here, get back our Alistair from the banishment. Strath can banish to make an Elysium, and we will pass off there. Elysium board wipe, we have a negate in 2 fusions and a Vengeance Dragon versus Blitzclique. How will they perform? They have a Fleur-de-Lis the Thunderbolt, which can come down thanks to Elysium. They waited for main phase for some reason to summon this, and then they're going to use the punishment immediately that it sets. They're going to try to force out the Snake Eyes Vengeance Dragon. Vengeance Dragon is going to be chained to put the Fleur-de-Lis the Thunderbolt in the back row, but we're going to chain Final Bringer of the End Times, which is going to destroy the Fleur-de-Lis and threaten the Elysium. That's going to force the player to do something. So they're going to use Invocation Sword, and they're going to fuse off the Elysium into a Hyper Invoked Aeon using some other materials from the banishment as well. Vengeance Dragon is destroyed. The chain resolves, and we have some chain links. Chain link 1 is going to be the Iwas in the graveyard. I'm not sure why that's chain link 1, but anyway, Hyper Invoked Aeon is going to be chain link 2. It's going to be banishing a whole bunch of cards, though banishing from the Blitzclique extra deck doesn't do a whole lot. We'll get back the Iwas, and then Iwas effect confused when it summons to, and they'll make a Mecha Bot with the float effect here with Alistair and a Light Monster. Next up is Blitzclique Breakaway, but we don't have a spell card in hand on the Invoke side, so we can't negate any of this. Activate a Coulomb, summon a token, and search for a copy of the Surge Blitzclique. Normal summon Surge, and then we'll MST the back row, which triggers Surge, but there's a Macabre, so that'll be negated and banished if not for the Alternator tucking it back into the deck. So it won't be banished, but the effect will still be negated. We do get to trigger the Emmy that we search for, however, but that's not exactly a combo enabler. We destroy the Macabre, Emmy summons herself, we get the Breakaway back. But that's just Emmy Breakaway versus full Invoked Chimera follow-up, and we'll just go to game 2 to save some time. Blitz gets to go first in game 2, and they will start with a draw phase Breakaway. Go ahead and place a trap face up, and that'll be met by Perulia, usually a pretty good card into Blitzclique, but they didn't open a particularly strong engine hand. So they're just going to set a copy of Chalice and Breakaway and just pass it over with no summons at all. Sure, I guess. Go ahead and go to the battle phase, where Evenly Matched is going to come down to snipe 2 of the 3 cards on the field. They will elect to banish face down both of the set cards, the Chalice and the Breakaway, keeping the Alternator face up. Main phase 2, Mirror Swords Knight hits the field. Tribute to summon a monster from the deck. That's the Big Wing Baphomet. Activate to search for 2 cards, but it's met by a Crackle Blitzclique, which will destroy it before it has a chance to be fused away. They search for Chimera Fusion and Gazelle as Breakaway returns itself to the hand by its own effect. Chimera is going to have to set Typhoon, an Invocation, and a Chimera Fusion and pass it over. Vados, unfortunately, is a Pyro, so it's not usable to make the Chimera Fusions with. End phase Alternator, go ahead and alternate into a Whisker, and then we did destroy a card with a Blitzclique effect this turn, so we can use the Whisker in the end phase here to snipe 2 of the back row, and they actually managed to hit both of the real ones, and then Surge is going to trigger to search for the Grain Blitzclique in the end phase still. Draw phase, they draw a Coulomb, and they also have a Grain here, which can use its effect to come down and destroy that last back row. And we're just going to go to game 3. This game is over. It's game 3 for all the marbles, and Invoked Chimera will begin with their favorite card, the Mirror Swords Knight. Activate Mirror Swords Knight, summoning the Gazelle, the King of Mythical Claws from the deck. They'll go ahead and get a Chimera Fusion with that, and they'll use that effect immediately, fusing with an Iwas in their hand to make the Baphomet Fusion. Baphomet Fusion sends another copy of Iwas, as the Gazelle in the graveyard is going to go ahead and search them a copy of Diabelle's the White Witch. Chimera Fusion can return itself to hand, of course. And they'll go ahead and follow up with the Chimera Fusion. They'll fuse with the Berfament and a White Witch into the Moa Regina. That's going to trigger the Iwas to float back to the field, and then Moa Regina can go ahead and get back that White Witch. White Witch on summon can send a card to the graveyard, and that's going to be met by Crackle Blitzclique before the Destruction Prevention can be turned on. Curse of Diabel is the graveyard, which searches for a copy of Philia Diabel, and then Philia Diabel, of course, gets into the Diabel Star Vengeance. Vengeance can banish a spell and a trap, and then Moa Regina can be chained to that effect to remove the Crackle. A little bit of spot removal there. Iwas up next, banishing itself from the field to search for an Alistair, and then bonus normal summon it. They'll use its effect to banish a Sorath and search for the Invocation Sword. They'll use the Sword fusing with the Alistair and the Sorath into Baberon. Baberon gets into Gamma Summon and banishes their White Witch in case they want to summon it back from the banishment later. They have a Veer Camp already in hand, so they'll go ahead and summon that and set the Sword with it. They will set the Gamma Summon and go ahead and get back the Alistair the Reminiscent with the Invocation Sword. Alistair Reminiscent comes down and goes into Chiroza with the Baberon, and then they'll go ahead and use the Sorath with the Chiroza to make an Elysium, and that is full combo. We're going to pass it over there. Surge Blitzclique is the draw for turn, and Gordian Slicer comes down targeting 3 cards and forcing out quite a lot of interaction. Invocation Sword will be chained to that, and so will be the Diabel Star Vengeance, which, not really sure why we're paying half our life points to destroy the Gordian Slicer, because then they don't even summon a Synchro Monster. But sure. Invocation Sword comes down. Here is the Hyper Invoked Aeon. We're going to banish a whole lot of cards to bounce the 2 monsters to the hand. And Hyper Invoked Aeon and the Iwas will trigger. This time, Iwas as Chainlink 2. Hyper Invoked Aeon banishes a bunch of cards, including our own Mirror Swords Knight, and a bunch of useless crap from the Blitzclique extra deck. Breakaway comes down, and we're going to place a trap face up. That's going to be met by Gamma Summon, summoning Invoked Mechaba by banishing the Chirozo. Next up, we're going to use Surge Blitzclique. We're going to target the Aeon to try to summon it. That's going to be met by the Invoked Mechaba, discard a monster to negate and banish, but we're going to use a Forbidden Chalice to negate that Invoked Mechaba. However, we did respond to a fusion monster, so the Veercam can activate to negate and banish the Chalice, but we have a second Chalice to negate the Veercam. So resolving backwards, Chainlink 5 negates the Veercam. Veercam doesn't resolve. We have a Chalice that negates the Mechaba. Mechaba doesn't resolve. And here comes Surge, destroying Aeon, and it summons itself just fine. Just like nothing happened. Breakaway triggers, returning itself to the hand. Go to battle phase, attack over the Veercam, and then we'll break away our Surge for an Emmy. That triggers the Emmy, of course, destroying the Mechaba to summon herself. Go to main phase 2, set Breakaway and pass. But then in the end phase, our opponent has the Berfament Fusion in the graveyard to go into the Mirror Swords Knight, which can tag out still in the end phase because it's a quick effect. Summoning the Big Wing Berfament finally from the deck and getting a double search. That is terrifying to behold. They draw for turn, and they also get back their Alistair because of the sword in the graveyard. And at this point, Blitzclique realizes the writing on the wall and packs it up. Here is post-Pointlist Blitzclique. We have 3 copies of Whisker still, 3 copies of Surge, 3 copies of Crackle, 1 Emmy, and 3 Grain. None of that has changed. We still have the 1 searchable Thunder King. No longer do we have the Thunderclap Monk. We instead, in this build, have 1 copy of the Thundercrash Snare Crow, which is now free, so not sure if it's good, but it sure is here. We have 3 copies of Dogmatic Flirtily, the Thunderbolt, and a Punishment to go with it. Not sure if I like this card or not, to be perfectly honest. And we have 2 copies of 7th Tachyon. I assume that the second one probably should be replaced for the 7th Ascension. We have 3 copies of the Coulomb, 3 copies of Breakaway, 1 Step Leader, 2 Alternators, and no copy of the Return Stroke. And then for the rest of the non-engine, we have 3 Chalice, 3 MST, 2 Final Bringers, and 2 Pair Bears. In the extra deck, we have a whole bunch of crap, including some cards that you can send for Ultimate Slayer. None of it's super important, really. We have 7 Tachyon target in the form of 106 Giant Hand, and the number 1 C107. Those are the important ones, really. Oh, you can also search for the Fleur-de-Lis with the 107. And then in the side deck, we have the Return Stroke that I mentioned was missing from the main. We have 3 copies of the Basketball, 3 of the Ultimate Slayer, 2 Slicers, 3 Regekis, 2 Cosmic Cyclones. I don't even know why you would want this card in Blitzclique, but here it is. And the 3rd Final Bringer of the End Times. Here is Invoked Chimera, featuring 3 Mirror Swords Knight, of course, 2 of the Gazelle, and 1 Big Wing Berfament with 2 Chimera Fusions. Also have the 2 Small Worlds, of course, to glue together this deck. Everybody loves playing Small World with Chimera. It works really well. We have 3 copies of Iwas and 3 copies of Iwas for the Invoke side of things, alongside 2 of New Alistair with his sword, 1 of Old Alistair with his Invocation, and the Meltdown to search him. We also have 1 Veercam, and the 1 Gamma Summon is in the side. We have a Diabel Star package. We have both of the black and white ones, and then we have Affiliate and a Curse, of course. And then we have 2 Skullmeisters, 2 Evenlys, 2 Dark Rulers, and all 6 Charmies. In the extra deck for invoked names, we have Aeon, Elysium, Okeanis, Mechaba alt art. Don't use the alt art. I don't like it. Purgatrio, a Baberon, a Sorath, a Ragent, and a Chirozo. For Chimera cards, we have the Illusion Guy, rarely enough. We have the Mo Regina, the Sultan Sheridan, of course, a Baphomet Fusion, and then we have some synchro targets, the Popular of the White Forest, and the Snake Eyes Vengeance Dragon. And then in the side deck, we're going to have 2 more copies of the White Witch. We have 1 copy of the Diabells, 2 copies of Godos and the Gamma Summon, 3 copies of the Vados, 3 copies of Santa Claus, and 3 Typhoons. That's all the time we have for this week. I'll post the results up on the screen so you can see which decks did the best, and I'll also post the pie chart so you can see what kind of decks we are playing with. Don't forget, if you want to join a Genesis Weekly, all you have to do is join Genesis Discord. Links in the description. And don't forget to subscribe for more Genesis content. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.